Hi guys, today I'm going to talk about how to write an essay introduction. Now I think that most students will agree that when it comes to writing an essay, the introduction is the hardest part. Why? Because sometimes if you don't know what to include in the introduction, then it just feels like you're just writing and you wonder, what exactly do you write about? Yeah? So in today's video, I'm going to show you a few strategies that you can follow, and I'm going to give you some examples of different types of introductions so that you can choose one that works for you. Now, before I show you some examples, I want you to first be very clear about the purpose of your introduction. Now, the purpose of your introduction is one, to capture the reader's interest. And the reader, moi, the reader is an academic audience, right? It's not for your friend, it's not for your mom, it's not for your boo, it's for an academic audience. Hence, you have to have language that is not too casual. Just keep that in mind. But your goal is to capture our interest, to build a case through logic. It's logic. It has to be logic. I want to make that clear. And then you build the case so that you can get towards the most important part of your essay introduction, which is your thesis. You cannot write an essay without a thesis. There's no way around it. Now, the introductory paragraph has three parts. It has the hook, it has background information for the reader so that they can understand the third part of the introduction, which is the thesis statement. So what you say in the background information must lead us to your thesis. And of course, your thesis will tell the topic. It will tell the subdivisions of the essay, because once we read it, we know what to expect in the body. It also will tell us the pattern. Well, it may, it doesn't have to, but it may tell us the pattern of organization. So when we read the thesis, we must get the impression that it's either a cause and effect essay or a problem solution essay. Like if you're in my intercultural communication course and you're preparing to do the first essay, you're writing a problem solution essay. So your thesis will tell us that. Or maybe you're doing a classification essay or a definition essay, whatever it is. The thesis many times will tell us a type of essay to expect. And also, a thing to know is that the thesis statement is the last sentence in the introduction. It's either the last or the second to last. So, to wrap it up, your introduction must have three parts: the hook, the background information, and the thesis statement. And the thesis statement is usually the last or the second to last sentence in the introduction. It usually tells us a topic. It tells us your opinion of the topic. And it usually either gives us something about the subdivisions of the main topic or just a pattern of organization. But that part is optional. So let's now look at a couple examples of different types of introductions. Now, the first type of introduction that we're going to be looking at is what they call the funnel. Now, when you think about a funnel, I think this picture comes to mind. And that's what that type of introduction will do. It starts with general statements and it leads down like a funnel until you get to the thesis statement. Now, I'm going to show you some examples, and they're all coming from the textbook Writing Academic English, the 4th edition. So let's look at the first example of a funnel introduction. Moving to a new country can be an exciting, even exhilarating experience. In a new environment, You somehow feel more alive. Seeing new sights, eating new food, hearing the foreign sounds of a new language, and feeling a different climate against your skin stimulate your senses as never before. Soon, however, this sensory bombardment becomes sensory overload. Suddenly, new experiences seem stressful rather than stimulating, and delight turns into discomfort. This is the phenomenon known as culture shock. Culture shock is more than jet lag or homesickness, and it affects nearly everyone who enters a new culture: tourists, business travelers, diplomats, and students alike. Although not everyone experiences culture shock in exactly the same way, many experts agree that it has roughly 5 stages. So this is a funnel introduction where it started with a general statement talking about moving to a new country. Then they went from that, moving to a new country, to what's in a new environment. Then they started to talk about the new sites, and then they went all the way down into culture shock. And then they gave you the thesis statement, which is that it has 5 stages. So that would be the funnel. And that's one type of introduction. Now let me show you a few more, but those are a little less college and academic like, these examples, but they still are relevant. They're a little bit more flippant, but they work. So let me show you them. And we're still taking them from the textbook, Writing Academic English. Now you may choose an introduction that is more funny and light. Well, here's an example. On November 14th, 1963, a few miles off the southern coast of Iceland, the crew of a fishing boat noticed smoke on the horizon. Thinking that another fishing boat was on fire, they went to investigate. When they got closer, they discovered that the smoke was not from a boat on fire. Rather, it was an undersea volcano about to erupt. The next day, ashes, cinders, and pumice were blown 1,000 feet into the air. The fishermen had witnessed a rare event, the violent birth of an island. The volcano continued to erupt for about 4 years, eventually creating an island about 1 square mile in area and 500 feet in height. The birth of Surtsey, as the island is named, offered science an extraordinary opportunity to learn how life takes hold on a sterile landmass. Now that's funny. Well, some of you may be saying that's not really funny, but that's supposed to be one of the more light, funny introductions. Now, let's say you want to do an introduction with surprising facts, and that's something else you can choose to do. Let's look at an example of a surprising fact or surprising statistics. Let's look at that type of start. Got high blood pressure? Try a truffle. Worried about heart disease? Buy a bonbon. It's the best news in years. Studies in 2 prestigious scientific journals say dark chocolate is good for you. It seems that eating a small piece of dark chocolate regularly can reduce the risk of heart disease because dark chocolate, buttermilk milk chocolate or white chocolate, contains high amounts of flavonoids, powerful cholesterol fighting compounds. What is the next health food going to be? Ice cream? Sugar cookies? There are so many conflicting news stories about which foods are good for you that it is often difficult to make the right choices at the supermarket. Now this is considered surprising because what they're trying to say is that if you have high blood pressure, Dark chocolate is going to be good for you. We don't associate dark chocolate. Well, we don't associate chocolate with helping us to get rid of high blood pressure. So this is a start, which is what we call the surprising facts. Or you may choose to do an introduction where you use historical information. And so let's look at an example of that. The Pilgrims who arrived in Massachusetts in 1620 came to find religious freedom. In the 17th and 18th centuries, large numbers of African men and women were brought as slaves to work on large plantations in the South. Immigrants from Northern and Southern Europe came in the early 19th century to escape poor economic conditions at home. Later in the 19th century, the first immigrants from China came as contract laborers to build the railroads connecting East and West. In the 20th century, political and economic refugees arrived from Asia, Eastern Europe, and Latin America. Indeed, the United States has seen immigrants come from many different parts of the world, and they have come for many reasons. Their ability to adjust to life in their adopted land has depended on several factors. So that's the fourth introduction that this textbook has shown us. And there are others, but these are four that you can depend on. But it's really up to you to decide on what you want to say, and then the tone you want it to be in, and then the type of introduction that would introduce your thesis and make this appropriate and relevant to whatever the topic is. So I hope those examples helped. And when you write your introduction now, I want it to be more thoughtful. Keep in mind what the purpose is. Keep in mind all the parts that should be there, and then decide on which type of introduction you think will be best. But don't just write random words. Be very thoughtful and intentional. Decide on the impact you want to have. Decide on the message of your overall essay, and then decide on which approach to use. Will it be the funnel? Will it be the interesting story? Will it be surprising information? Will it be historical information? You decide on what makes the most sense based on what you want to write about, and then choose information that will bring it all together. It is an art, and it does take a bit of practice. So be patient with yourself, but spend the time ensuring that you find the right introduction. So I hope that helps, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.